Yes.
And I actually think that's where magical things happen when people from different disciplines cross reference. So, I'm a physician that grew up in a non-physician family. My
Mm.
family is what we would now call entrepreneurs, but back then we said small business. And so it took someone that came from a small business background that was introduced to Kaizen principles that was in healthcare to to look at solving this problem in a completely different way. When you're able to do that kind of cross discipline pollination, I think it's when magical things happen.
Hey everybody, I'm Elizabeth Swan.
And I'm Tracy O'Rourke. Welcome to the Just in Time Cafe and welcome to our podcast. At the cafe, we wrestle with tough questions. We talk to groundbreakers, we discuss great books, and get insights from leaders and practitioners who are making a difference in the world.
We let you in on helpful apps, we bring you the news, and we challenge the status quo so you can build your problem-solving muscles.
So, Elizabeth, what is on the cafe menu?
Tracy, today we sit down with emergency physician turned startup founder, Greg Jacobson, and improvement author, podcaster, and KaiNexus senior advisor, Mark Graban, to unpack whether software can actually strengthen a culture of continuous improvement or merely reveal the one you already have. Greg was an ER physician frustrated by the absence of improvement systems, and Mark is an author who argues that sustainable results come from culture, not tools. So the KaiNexus journey started in healthcare, but has grown to embrace its cross-industry impact by drawing on habit loop science and the power of the nudge. So as you might suspect, humans are at the center. Inspired by the idea of getting assistance from different places, for our Q&A segment, we'll address the question, what really gets in the way of asking for help? And in case you are watching by video today, you'll notice that I will only be a voice during the interview because I was in the middle of an historic blizzard here on Cape Cod. Although Boston got the same 2.5 feet of snow that we did, they did not get our 70-mile-per-hour winds. So, phone lines down, power lines down. We were out for over a week, but that makes this the Blizzard edition, right, Tracy?
Yes. Up next, it's Q&A.
Today's question is, what really gets in the way of asking for help? And I got inspired to tackle this one with you because of a blog that a colleague of ours posted today. Stephanie Hill had been at her local gym trying to get past a particular ledge on a rock climbing wall, like for over a month without any success. And when she finally asked for help, she thought the woman was just going to show her, like, here's how you do it, and then leave her alone. Okay, you go try it. But instead, the woman held a laser pointer, right, and pointed at the holds that Stephanie was supposed to be, using once she got stuck. And Stephanie was like immediately, embarrassed and was worried about looking incompetent. And then she shifted and she embraced getting the help and feeling uncomfortable. And she made it to the top, right? And she posted that, and a lot of people chimed in about this. So I think it hits a chord, right? Have you ever done that? Have you ever avoided asking for help because you thought it might make you look bad?
I seriously have a problem with asking for help. I'm not sure if it's because I feel like I'm going to look bad or if I don't know what it is. I think I need therapy about it. But but I think most of it is I tend to be a doer. I get stuff done. I'm one of those people where, I write an action item list and it's everything's crossed off pretty much. Or if I find an action item list, sitting at my desk under some papers, I'll look at the list and everything's been done most of the time, right? But I think I'm definitely bad at asking for help. So I actually am pretty good at asking for help at work, right? So I love to collaborate at work. I love working with people. And I realize that, getting help at work is really important because there's a lot of people that have skills, especially when it comes to problem solving. I have a harder time asking for help at home. So just really quickly, I mean, I just did it all these years. I would just do what I felt like I needed to get done. Like, for example, taking the groceries out of the car. I never would be yelling, I need help. I would just do it. And now that I'm older, I want somebody to come help me with those groceries. And unfortunately, I have three men who are trained not to ask if I need any help because I train them that way. And so now I'm angry at them if they don't ask me if I need any help. And that goes against the training I did. Ugh. So, yes, I struggle with that. And then the other example is that I started playing pickleball in 2020, and I just played and played and played, and I never thought I needed a coach. 3.5 years in, I now have, I've been playing now for probably 4.5 years now, and I started getting a coach about 3.5 years in, and now I have to unlearn all of these bad habits because I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that or I'm not supposed to play that way. And that has been really hard. And so I'm kicking myself because I could have prevented it if I got help sooner. So yes, it's a struggle. I definitely have struggled with this in particular. How about you, Elizabeth?
Well, that's a really two great examples, and I feel like the one with the boys, it's just there's new training, right? You've got, they're grown men now, and they should be helping their mom. So I think that's a good learning. And then an
Hmm.
interesting that you draw a distinction between work and home. And I think about uh there's so many lessons here. Like obviously, to help my mom out and running the workday parties I did for like 15 years, I clearly was asking other people, but I remember feeling bad about asking people to help. But
Hmm.
they kept saying to me, like, this is like the most fun and this feels so good to help someone out who really needs it. Um,
Hmm.
so I think there's that, like that guilt of asking other people. There's also when it's like I love your description of the looking at that to-do list and like, I did them all. Right. And I
Yeah.
feel like there's some ego in that, and that, I'm capable, I can do this stuff. Like, and part of what has to happen is to check your ego,
Hmm.
embrace embrace that feeling of uncomfortability, which we're so good at telling people that we're working with to do that, right? That, that it's the messy middle and you're not going to know, and you're going to have moments of insight, then you're going to be in a mess, and it's like, oh yeah, that's true for us too, right? It's not just this
Hmm.
the other people. um and the urge to do it on your own is always tempting. I think for me, when I'm stuck, what occurs to me is that when I ask someone else, it isn't just about getting an answer or that help. It's also about collaborating. And you just mentioned that you love collaborating at work. And I think that that's been true for me probably since, probably even before improv training, but obviously that solidified that aspect of reaching out. It's, two brains always better than one. And I remember hearing this story about President Carter, that he took on the entire budget, right? I mean, there's huge committees they've got, to do the budget. And he did the budget over a weekend, like just like locked himself up in the Oval Office and did the budget all by himself. And then, lo and behold, people were like picking it apart. They weren't,
Hmm.
he missed the whole point of like, hey, by collaborating, then everybody gets bought into it, right? There's that aspect of asking for help. Um, and I think, do you see that? Do you see people get stuck with the sense that they've got to do it alone? It's up to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially at work, because, we're coaches, and it's really interesting, especially with projects and problem solving, that, a lot of times they feel like they're alone. It's their project and they don't really have a project team. And even for the process walk, I can't tell you how many times people want to just do it themselves. They don't want to involve anybody else. They want to walk the whole process themselves. And even though I tell them not to do that, they still do it. They go, well, I didn't really have time to organize this, so I just walked it myself. And I have to like sit and pause and say, okay, so let's talk about why that is not the best approach, right? And so, but it's sometimes there's in their head that they feel like they just need to do it alone because it's their project, or they want to get it done, and there's this mindset of sometimes that you're going to get it done faster. What is they what if you want something done, do it yourself. And, we're always fighting against that, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, that's if you want it done right, do it yourself.
Yes.
That
Hmm.
is stuck probably in a lot of people's brains. I think I
Hmm.
used to have more kind of stubborn pride in ownership, like it had to be me, that, if I wanted it done right. And I know I feel the opposite now, that it should not be all about me. My main sense is kind of what I've learned is the sooner I ask, the faster I get where I'm going.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah.
But anyway, this is a good one to tackle. Thanks again to Stephanie in the group that hashed this out on LinkedIn. It's such a core question.
And great video that she provided too.
Oh yeah, that was a good video. We'll provide the link to that. That was thanks for reminding me that
Yeah.
made me want to like go get to some gym that had rock climbing walls and it's like a good time.
Yep. I'm Tracy O'Rourke, and you're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. We host these monthly, so you can go to www.jitcafe.com and go to our podcast page.
Coming up next, it's an interview with our featured guests, Greg Jacobson and Mark Graban. Tracy, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Greg and Mark?
Absolutely would love to. Greg Jacobson isn't, as you said before, an emergency physician turned entrepreneur and co-founder of KaiNexus, an operational excellence software platform designed to make continuous improvement visible, scalable, and sustainable. Frustrated by the lack of systems to support Kaizen in healthcare, he went and did it himself. He built KaiNexus to help leaders standardize, measure, and spread improvement across organizations. Actually, I take it back. He didn't do it himself. He said it was really hard and he needed a lot of help with that.
Yeah.
And so Greg challenges companies to examine visibility, flow, and leadership behaviors to ensure operational excellence thrives, not fades. So that's all about Greg. So, Elisabeth, why don't you introduce Mark?
Why don't I, Tracy? Mark Graban is an author, speaker, consultant, and senior advisor to KaiNexus, focused on building cultures of continuous improvement grounded in psychological safety and systems thinking. He is the author of The Mistakes That Make Us and other books on lean and operational excellence. And he hosts the Lean blog interviews and My Favorite Mistakes podcast. Through his writing, coaching, and advisory work, Mark helps organizations move from blame to learning and from isolated projects to sustained improvement. No flies on either of these guys. We are honored to have Greg and Mark at the cafe.
So, welcome Greg Jacobson and Mark Graban to the cafe.
Much for having us.
Yeah. Hey,
Yes.
Tracy. Hey, Elizabeth.
Hey,
All right.
hey.
We've got a lot of questions for you. So let's just get started. Let's just jump right into it. So tell us, first of all, tell us a little bit about the origins of KaiNexus. You've probably told this story before, but how and when did it start? Like, what was your kind of brainchild with this whole company and your organization?
Yeah, well, it started a lot longer before most people realized. But in 2004, I was transitioning, going from a third year resident into an attending position at Vanderbilt. So I'm an emergency medicine doctor by training. And I was handed the book Kaizen by Miyazaki Amai. And my chairman said, "You think like this. I think we could teach these concepts to residents so they take it into future emergency medicine departments that they were going to work at." And I looked at the book and thought to myself, all right, well, okay, I'll give it a shot. And really, Tracy, by page 6 or 7, it had transformed my thinking, because I was like, how did I go through 4 years of college, 4 years of med school, 3 years of residency, and no one talked about this body of knowledge about improving systems?
Mhm.
But Greg, nobody gets that education usually, right? I mean, you're not alone.
Exactly. And so I thought this is perfect. And at the time, the curriculum for training residents had been changing, and was changing to make more well-rounded doctors. And it wasn't just about the knowledge, but it was also about, things like emotional intelligence. But one of the things was system-based practice. And that was their way of saying operational excellence in so many words, that we don't operate in a vacuum. So I started teaching the concepts to residents so they could do improvement projects and try to manage these things on email. And it was a total cluster, and I was unable to do it. And I thought to myself, well, how hard could software be to develop? I mean,
I mean, you're a doctor.
well,
It'd be harder than that.
for the record, I didn't think to myself, oh, I'm going to learn how to program. I just thought, how hard it could be to develop. So I got a little bit of a resource from the emergency department, a quarter-time person, and I started the process of developing some software that would allow residents to put in their Kaizen-minded observations that would ultimately result in a project that they could, really small scale, what we would call an opportunity for improvement, and to drive to fruition. And after 3 years of banging my head against the wall, I realized that building software that truly adds value is very difficult. And I thought I will add far more value in healthcare by developing a system for people so they don't have to go build their own systems, where they can just take something off the shelf and start doing their own improvement work. And so that was the origin story of KaiNexus and the founding. And we started with a very small scoped software that was all about employee suggestions and operationalizing that into actionable and meaningful small improvements in initially healthcare organizations, but we've expanded way beyond that.
Yeah, it's expanded out a couple different directions in terms of functionality and different improvement modes, and then also across industries. And that's a classic startup approach of they say establish a beachhead somewhere and then start scaling out into other industries. Like, just a quick story, we got an email from once I was involved with the company. We got an email from somebody. Greg, you probably remember this. Like, he was mad that he was in manufacturing and that our software was all about healthcare. And like in a constructive way, mad.
Yeah,
but
right.
That was a wake up call that certain things shouldn't be hard coded with healthcare terminology, and you iterate into making things more general and configurable. And so now we have customers in a lot of different industries.
So I want to jump in and come back to two things. This is the disembodied voice from Cape Cod. So first, it cracks me up that this happened as you were beginning. Actually, you were a third-year resident, but so anyway, in my brain, I'm just thinking, okay, this is a very busy person. But if you want something done, right, then you find a busy person. So kudos to you for doing this when you probably had a very, very full plate. And the other thing I wanted to ask and take a step back is, Mark, tell us about your involvement. How did you get involved with KaiNexus?
So I got introduced to Greg via email. It was very early 2011. Another ER doctor who knew, I didn't know him well, but he knew of my work. So there's benefits of having a blog, and my book, Lean Hospitals, was already out. And he made introductions and said, hey, there's this doctor in Austin. He's all about Kaizen. He's got a company, KaiNexus. So that piqued my interest. And I was coming through Austin, and Greg and I met and had some slices of pizza at a place near his house. It was on Valentine's Day, which makes it very easy to remember. So it was 15 years ago this month. And, I was a little skeptical because I'm like, I don't know, what is Kaizen software? But, the fact that he was so into, continuous improvement, I thought, well, let me talk to the guy and meet him. And then we sat there for a couple of hours. Just, the fact that Masaki Amai was such a core influence of his, we had so much in common, even though I came from the perspective of an engineer who started in manufacturing. And Greg is obviously, a doctor who started where he started. There was so much, just kind of common philosophy and approach. And then I got involved formally with the company. I think it was June of 2011, and I've had various roles. Never a full-time gig, but different roles supporting best I can the growth of the company at different phases, from a handful of people to the much bigger team we have today.
Wonderful.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you've been in business for a while now, and so what has been maybe the most surprising thing so far about your company and or the software or the culture or your impact? What has been surprising to you, Greg?
That's an open-ended question, certainly.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this. I probably understood that building a company would be difficult, but I'm surprised at just how difficult it is. Number one, it made medical school look easy. There is no syllabus for a startup. You can certainly read a ton about it, but at the end of the day, it's this mixture of knowledge
This
and
blog summarizes key
and critical thinking. And so that was surprising that I'm this far into it. I was really surprised at the similarities once we decided to take the technology outside of healthcare. And of course you're probably thinking to yourself, but wait, Greg, you read a book that was really geared towards manufacturing. Why would you think that it would be so different? So this Mark hinted at it, but right now 65% of our customers are non-healthcare customers. So if you would have told me 20 years ago, you're going to be leading a software company that is going to be doing something called Hoshin Conry or Gemba walks or 5 Whys or any of the other terms that I now and know and love, that I hadn't heard of at the beginning of this journey, and you're going to be helping a dairy company make infant formula, and a mining company extract ore, and a financial services company providing different products, I would have just said, I don't know how I go from where I am today to that point. So you are clearly on some really heavy drugs, and you're not caring. But every single step along the way over the last 20 years has made a lot of sense. And once you kind of look at it under the microscope, it makes total sense that improvement is improvement, respecting people is respecting people, and you can really apply these concepts in literally any system that you are a part of, even down to your home and personally, but more importantly, into any type of organization. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm surprised every day about the things that we're learning. So
Yeah. Go ahead,
I
Mark.
just wanted to jump in. Shameless product plug. One of our customers. We also help the Wonderful Company. So we help them make and produce and transport Fiji water, which I happen to be drinking right now. So shout out to our friends at Wonderful. I don't have pistachios handy. Those are in the pantry. But.
No, I echo what you said, Greg. I mean, I've been doing process improvement now over 25 years, and I started in appliances and, quickly went out of appliances, out of the appliance industry into all kinds of organizations and it's crazy how much it applies everywhere. I don't even need to know the process to help people apply these skills. And so it's really kind of amazing. And I know Elisabeth, same thing. She's been doing it for such a long time, and just being able to help people, even though you know nothing about their industry, but you understand process and you understand what they're trying to do. It's pretty amazing.
I also love how full circle it's come, that it used to be, Tracy, you and I having to describe to service industry clients that, this started in manufacturing, but this applies to every process you're doing. Whereas Greg started outside of manufacturing and then wound his way back into serving manufacturing clients, the reverse osmosis process.
Yes.
And I actually think that's where magical things happen when people from different disciplines cross-reference. So, I'm a physician that grew up in a non-physician family. My family is what we would now call entrepreneurs, but back then we said small business. And so it took someone that came from a small business background, that was introduced to Kaizen principles, that was in healthcare, to look at solving this problem in a completely different way. And that's what I think attracted Mark to the conversation, because he realized that we were using technology in a different way than most people had thought of using technology to add value in operational excellence. And when you're able to do that kind of cross discipline pollination, I think it's when magical things happen. If you've heard me talk, I love talking about cognitive science and habit science and behavioral science and kind of understanding many of those concepts can help you in all facets of your life, certainly in your process improvement activities and roles that you are at your organization. So I think it was just another manifestation of this kind of cross-discipline pollination.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's actually great that you brought that up, Greg, because I share that fascination with the cognitive science aspect of a lot of this, and particularly the habit science. And it was really fun listening to you talk about that recently at AME. And I realized, do you feel like KaiNexus also provides kind of support, like for habits?
Oh, 100%. I mean, deeply embedded in the design of the technology is understanding that there is a habit loop, that in order for a human to develop a habit, that happens in a very particular part of the brain. The basal ganglia is responsible for habit formation, and the basal ganglia is also responsible for reward pathways. And so kind of creating your processes with that recognition in mind is going to increase the success of whatever discipline you're trying to create. And so this has been I think Mark and I probably talked about Duhigg probably in 15 or 16 for the first time with his book Power of Habits. And James Clear has really taken that science and even popularized it more. And thinking through how do you design technology to change behaviors is critical to what we do at KaiNexus and what we're doing as we design KaiNexus for different organizations. So 100%.
Yeah. I love this part of it, because I think it would be easy for someone to say, oh, software, they just help us track, and maybe they have a couple tools to help us do some mapping, yada, yada, yada. But I think this is a really important piece, because, I think watching kind of the CI transformation of learning, right? Like, oh, this isn't just about teaching problem solvers how to problem solve. It's about teaching leaders how to build good habits so they can help their problem solvers, right? So what would you say are some of the habits that you help leaders in particular build?
Yeah, so we recognize that in order to change the culture of an organization, what someone's really saying is what I think Seth Godin describes best is people like us do things like this. So who are people like us? Well, that might be all the people that work at your company. It might be all of the people that work in your division. It might be, well, here are all the senior leaders that work at this hospital. So figuring out what is the group of people like us, and then the things like this is the side of, what is the action that you want them to take. And so kind of recognizing the importance of that, and then understanding that they're setting the tone. I like to call it the accountability plan or the accountability structure. If accountability, you're allergic to that term, you could use the term responsibility. But really setting that tone from the standpoint of the most senior leader at the organization, and then cascading the habit loops or the habit discipline, whether you want to think of that as cascading it up, sideways, out, down, whatever. It's really kind of creating that discipline to say, hey, what are we doing to move forward our strategic deployment efforts? Hey, what are you doing to show respect for people and getting them to engage? And so I kind of classify all the work into all the actions into two areas. And then I'm going to turn it over because I realize I'm talking the whole time, and Mark has so much to add to this. But I look at it as senior leaders. You want them to compliment, to recognize the really great work that people are doing to contribute to the improvement work. That's fostering intrinsic motivation. That's tickling that side of the kind of the ethos of the human. And Daniel Pink's book Drive articulates this really well. Then the second thing is you want to nudge. You want to, hey, where are we at with these efforts, and what can I do to help unblock this? This is important for the organization. So I think it's the recognition and the nudge side, and I'll pause there. Well, I know that Mark will add more color to this.
Well, the habit loops are so important, but it's got to start with some desire and some intent, and I think some of that comes from mindsets. So if you present the idea of Kaizen and habit loops to a leader who's still stuck in what I'll call the old school mindset of like, our workers, our employees, their job is to show up and follow orders and do their jobs. And there's still a lot of theory X thinking out there. And, you've got to find the leaders that already have the mindset that says we do value our people and we know that they're creative and that they can improve their work if we support them as leaders, but maybe they're having trouble operationalizing it or sustaining it. And that's where the habit loops come into play. That's where a platform like KaiNexus can come into play. Because one of the things that was a shared belief right in that first pizza meeting with Greg was the idea that software alone isn't a silver bullet. And to hear that from a guy who co-founded a software company, was refreshing. And, from the beginning, we've talked about, three legs of the stool or three pillars or whatever you want to call it. There's, the methodology and, having some sort of structure and framework of what your methodology is, leadership behaviors and technology. And if any of those are missing, this doesn't work. And I think that still plays out well 15 years later. Technology possibilities have shifted and changed a lot, but without you can't just tell people, hey, okay, go improve. Giving them a framework like Masaki Amai or Norm Bodek's Kaizen model, giving them Lean, giving them Lean Six Sigma. Whatever you call it, and whatever the flavor is, kata or A3 problem solving. Like as a company, we're pretty agnostic and flexible. As long as you have a methodology that's consistent, we think that's really, really key. Again, with the management mindsets and the behaviors that come from it, and technology.
Yeah, and to add to that, Mark, people think, oh, we don't need technology. We're going to go ahead and use Excel. We're going to go ahead and use a whiteboard. We're going to go ahead and use paper. All three of those things I just mentioned are technology. You talk to people before the printing press and ask them about paper and things of that nature. And so there is no question that you are using technology to do this work on and to organize this work. It's just a matter of is that technology been designed to do that type of work? One of the things that we see consistently over and over and over is people are overcomplicating that methodology. And I think that this has been really top of mind for me the last several months. And I think that originates from, and I'm going to say something really controversial. I think that originates from the process improvement folks that are us. Because we have such a deep understanding of all of these problem-solving tools and all these methodologies, we're facile with being able to talk through 20 or 30 different tools and problem-solving techniques. And that is completely overwhelming to the average frontline worker. So I really, as we're thinking through and as you're thinking through designing the behaviors you want to see at your organization, try to design it for the average person that doesn't have your background. And
Yeah.
keep in mind, these people are highly creative, they're highly intelligent. They just don't have the same experiences and the same technical knowledge that you have. So
Uh-huh.
keeping that front of mind as you're kind of working through what does this work look like at our company,
Yeah.
is something that we see,
No,
almost.
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, Elizabeth and I wrote a book saying simplify your Lean Six Sigma journey because it's complicated. Like, you don't need all that stuff. I mean, we're constantly trying to simplify, but because we see that that people are overcomplicating it, and it creates a barrier. It creates a barrier. And funnily enough, or I don't even know if that's a word, but we've been solving problems our whole life, right? So I always remind people, you've been solving problems your whole life. Without a fishbone diagram or without,
Mm.
without these 700 tools. And we're just going to take you to the next level and give you a few things to just up the ante on that.
Right.
And so that's kind of been our approach because I agree with you. I feel like there's so much out there and we sort of get enamored with the tools and the methodology and we forget why we're there. We're there to help them be
Yeah.
successful, reduce waste, achieve results, make a difference. And if they're immobilized by all the tools around them, it could be just another barrier to
Mhm.
doing something about it. So yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Mark?
No. Oh yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I think the one benefit of having a methodology, though, and maybe there's a related mindset. We can call that mindset, plan, do, study, adjust. There's a lot of do out there. And, I've been in organizations where people said, unironically, they'll say something like, well, yeah, we're already great at solving problems. I mean, we're solving those same problems all the time. I'm like, well, we have different operational working definitions of what solving means. I mean, a lot of people,
Mm,
and it's their best efforts. I'm not faulting them as individuals, but without some of the methodology and the mindsets, people do fight fires and they might put the same fire out repeatedly instead of kind of stepping back and asking, well, how can we prevent more effective problem solving would ask the question of how do we prevent the fire from starting again? And that's where, again, like with a little bit of a nudge and some
mm,
prompting, people can take their efforts to the next level. Because sometimes people
mm.
get frustrated and burned out, from all the activity, and they're like, oh, that problem keeps popping up. They might get discouraged and stop working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like what you're kind of pointing out is the thing that we almost have to retrain folks or give them a chance to see the advantages of working through something like plan, do, check, act, and not have all the do out there. And that we've been, Tracy and I talk about, people have probably been told, don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution, right? They've had bosses, they've had success, they've had rewards for jumping into the do, as it were. And we have to say, hey, wait a second, like you're saying, Mark, like if we're facing this problem this many times, like maybe another way to go about it is this. And it feels like, having those prompts, having those nudges, having that structure, it really helps. And the other thing, and I don't know if this, I'm making an assumption, it could be wrong, but I feel like the fact that you went from, okay, we're just going to apply, the continuous improvement philosophies to healthcare, and then, did the sort of reverse trip of then opening it up to the world of manufacturing and beyond, that you may have less jargon, because I feel like one of the things that happens with people getting overwhelmed is that they have to learn a new language. And, people are tribal, right? So continuous improvement can be a tribe. And, we can be very comfortable and facile with Gembas and Hoshin planning and all that. And people just look at us going, eh? So I feel like, I wonder if that's happened too with KaiNexus.
I feel like sometimes people use jargon as a way to create status and not as a way to add value to who they're trying to coach or teach. And so physicians do this all the time, unintentionally. Now, granted, a lot of physician jargon is simply designed to allow easier communication with other physicians. I mean, I can explain what liver function tests are, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. But using that jargon with the patient can create distance and can, whether it's intentional, it's probably all unintentional, subconscious behaviors happening. And so we were very intentional about not putting jargon in the design of KaiNexus. I bet that actually came up in our first meeting, Mark, because I feel like that's something that I've been on the bandwagon with. Like I even went as far as to consider multiple times is the fact that KaiNexus is a play on Kaizen and Nexus, and fusing those. Is that too much jargon? And so it's not, but as near as we can tell. So I think it's important not to create those barriers. I also think that y'all have been using a term here that I just want to make sure that the listeners pick up on. Y'all have been saying taking people to their next level. You haven't been saying taking people to an elite level, right? Because if you take someone, you say, "Oh, I'm going to take you from never doing something to an elite level," that's just an impossible. But just the next, maybe someone has never thought of problem solving, and so we just want them to problem solve. Period. Don't care how you do it. But if you have no methodology, I guarantee you will have some success just problem solving. Whether it's 25%, whether it's 50%, whether it's I don't know. It depends on the scale of the problem you're trying to solve, the complexity of it, and a whole bunch of other factors. But you will be successful. Then once you get a person that's like, hey, I'm solving problems, but like this subset of problems over here, it keeps recurring, or we've just made the process so bloated, it's kind of over processed and it's not efficient anymore. Then teaching them, oh well, cool. Let me show you this tool that can make this more efficacious for you, and just taking the person just to the next little step and meeting them where they're at versus. So I just wanted to cover that and just say that y'all have been talking about that in a really nuanced way, and I want to make sure that it came through.
Yeah, that's a growth mindset approach there. And one of the great ways to get people started with continuous improvement is, people call them just do it's. And the one example Greg would always use in demos to start off was move the trash can. Like that doesn't require root cause analysis. It's not even really, I mean, it would be the most rudimentary PDSA cycle. If you move the trash can, now people are tripping over it. You may move it someplace else. But like just to start with the just do it's, like I agree with Greg, that'll get you somewhere. And at some point participation and getting people engaged in what matters to them is so important. Then you can start teaching more nuanced methodology of, well, when do you do a root cause analysis? When do you have to do an A3? When do you call in a coach for support? How do you evaluate if something is really an improvement? If you don't get people started with, meeting them where they are, or helping them with baby steps, it's hard to take people to the next level and the next and the next and the next.
Yes.
And that's one thing Greg and I have always, I think, seen eye to eye on.
You guys have mentioned a lot of change management books and this idea of taking them to the next level, like what they're ready for, showing that there's a return on the fact that they took a risk and it worked. They made an improvement. I always like to say that motivates the elephant, right? And that came from, what book is that?
Is that Made to Stick?
Switch.
Yeah, no, it's Switch, by the
Switch.
Heath brothers.
The Heath
They
brothers,
talk
yeah.
about change management is a big part of it is, we want to motivate the elephant. We want to give them a reward, if you will. Like the reward is you actually improve something, and it motivates people to want to maybe continue on that journey. And you can't just say, okay, do this journey that's going to feel really hard, and there may be a return at some point, right? And so there's these little cycles of try something and see it worked. Now try it again, or maybe take a bigger problem on. And it's this idea of motivating the elephant as you go, so that they want to continue. Because let's face it, change is hard. And learning is sometimes hard. You know, most people are very comfortable in their subject matter expertise and not have to think all day. And I mean that in a good way. Like I've been doing this for years and I don't really have to think. I just know. Right. And so taking them out of that cycle, it's energy and they should be rewarded because there's a result. So I really like this idea of, kind of baby steps, if you will, in terms of learning.
And I think that what people often underestimate is the cost of picking the wrong technology. That's what we're typically engaged with people that kind of realize that they're limiting their organization's improvement potential with the way they've been doing their improvement processes. And so all of the concepts that you're talking about or that we've been talking about are easier to do when you have an understanding of what's happening in different parts of the organization. You have the ability to go into it, just do it, and see, does coaching need to be done here? You have the idea and the realization of, oh, well, this leader is not engaging in the system. This is kind of where the interplay between how technology and methodology and leadership behaviors are all needed to go back to that three-legged stool that Mark mentioned.
I think also what's great in just listening to you guys talk is Tracy and I have seen this a number of times over our careers, and I'm sure you've seen, you could call out examples too, of people trying to position technology as a replacement, like that it's a panacea, that it somehow could do the solving for you. And obviously with the advent of AI, that's gotten kind of even more traction. And it's this mistaken idea that you can sort of outsource that thinking. And I feel like the focus that you've both talked about of the leadership behaviors, of the prompts, the nudges, having that mindset that all that is so critical, that this is, as it should be, a support structure, not a replacement for your decision making.
No question. I think when people kind of, I'll say, use the excuse, oh, we don't need technology, I think there's a fundamental disconnect between, well, you are using technology, you just don't recognize it. But then two, it's the misinterpretation that technology is either going to get me not coaching, or I don't have to use my critical thinking hat anymore because technology is doing it. This is not a ventilation system that's just going to work if you turn it on. You don't have to think about it. This is a way to make things visible, to help with things like accountability and impact tracking and collaboration, and these things that you have to do for this work to have the biggest impact that it can at an organization. And at least yet, AI is incredibly impressive, but it is not hopefully taking over for your critical thinking. If it is, you're probably leaning into that a little too much. So thanks for pointing that out, Elisabeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's getting bigger and bigger as an issue.
Yeah.
So one of the areas we're talking about habits, and we've done some courses on. Elisabeth and I used to teach a course, the lean leader at UC San Diego, and we would talk about leader standard work. I like to call them leader habits, just because it's a broader term that people understand better, right? No barrier in the terminology, but things like, if you're not getting the results you want, culturally, the culture is going to bring you the results that you're cultivating. And so if you want your culture to be different, you got to do something different. And so these things like, habits, we're talking about these habits, like using tier boards or idea boards, and knowing that you don't just put it up and walk away.
Right.
These are things to help you as a leader visit and pay attention to ideas, problems, process improvement, and your people. And so now these are specifically things that I think you help organizations with as well. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just pick on idea boards. UMass Memorial is an organization we work with. They're probably our flagship example of deploying the KaiNexus throughout a 25,000 person healthcare organization and really moving the needle on things. And so the key thing here is, for example, without KaiNexus, they actually didn't even know how many idea boards they had. And they didn't know how used they were. They would have to go. Turns out they had around 600 or so. They would have to go physically look to see, and reporting was sketchy, and it was very time consuming. So having that technology allowed the discipline of their smaller operational excellence. I mean, they have a big operational excellence team, but they would have needed a much bigger one if they were going to do all this manual. But that operational excellence team to look in on, are these boards being used, and are they showing up and doing this type of work? And I think that what's really important is that when we kind of talk about the habit side of things, is that showing up? Is the checking in, let's just say once a month, to ensure this is going on? Because what happens at a lot of organizations, like, great, we're going to do idea boards, and the senior leader is all excited, and they show up one time, or they check in on it one time, and in that type of organization, people know, like, oh, we'll just placate the situation now, and this is going to fall off the senior leader's radar, and we'll get through it. Just don't worry. And so the important thing is continuing to show up and continuing to display that behavior, that this is really going to be the way things operate. And when you have technology that's set up to provide that kind of monitoring and the ability to engage in hundreds of boards in a fraction of the time, then all of a sudden it's really a leverage mechanism at that point. You'll be able to do more impactful work / engagement in a less amount of time, and with a system like KaiNexus. So
Yeah. 600 idea boards. Holy.
yeah, so they have a remarkable story. I mean, in 2013, 2014 era, they were hemorrhaging money. They had horrible patient employee satisfaction, and they started idea boards and started engaging people. And over the last 10, 12 years, they've completely transformed their patient scores, their employee satisfaction scores, their financial metrics. They, pre-KaiNexus, had completed 100,000 ideas in about 9 years. And then post-KaiNexus, they completed their next 100,000 in the next 3 years. So they were really able to use KaiNexus to accelerate and to actualize their potential, to be able to do that. And so that's just one way we're helping organizations. We also can help organizations, operationalize their project management type work, or their rounding, or their process work, or their strategy work as well. Mark, were you going to add something?
Yeah, it's just it comes back to culture, and I think culture is mostly born from the behaviors and the mindsets of leaders, and it tends to cascade downhill in an organization. And so, Dr. Dixon wasn't implementing Lean to have a Lean program that he could brag about at conferences. He was trying to turn around their health system. And this has become like the way they run their organization, the way they improve their organization, because he's leading it. He's not blessing it or supporting it or launching it. In manufacturing, GE Aerospace and the CEO, Larry Culp, is another example where, he is leading this, and his mindsets and behaviors, they never cascade perfectly. Culture change is difficult for a lot of the reasons we've brought up here today. But, the best examples I've seen have that strong CEO leadership, but it's different than the old, as John Toussaint would call it. John was one of those CEOs in his time, not the all-knowing, all-powerful white coat leader, as he would call it in healthcare. It's a different type of leader. Yes, it's strong leadership, but it's setting direction, it's sharing principles, it's reinforcing and recognizing people. Like, these are the executive habits that give you a fighting chance to have a culture of continuous improvement.
Mm, that's great.
Well, we're
Great
almost at,
examples too. Go
yes,
ahead, Tracy.
excellent examples.
Yeah.
I was just going to say we're already out of time, darn it. And so I was just wondering if there's anything else you wanted to share with our audience about you, your company, the software, Mark.
Yeah, no, I think I would just share that if you are an organization that has an OpEx team that is maybe a little smaller than you would like, if you're an organization that is getting buried in Excel and SharePoint and doesn't have the visibility to the improvement work or the direction of the impact, and if you are feeling like we did this, we already solved this problem, I just can't find where the work is and who was involved in it. Those are all the kinds of organizations that will typically start conversations with us, and we can kind of start exploring the conversation on one is doing this work strategically, critical thing for the organization to do, and two, is there a recognition that technology is a barrier, and then three, is KaiNexus the right technology to solve that problem. And it's easy to get a hold of us. We're at KaiNexus.com, and you can reach out to us that way. And my personal email is Greg at KaiNexus.com. So just GREG at KaiNexus.com, and I'm happy to either engage with you directly or put you with the right person on my team to help think through that problem.
Thank you so much.
That's
And how about
awesome.
you, Mark? Any last thoughts from you?
I'll just add, we are a software company, but we are passionate about continuous improvement, for our customers and the way we work at practicing that in-house. And one reflection of that is our webinar series. I'll invite people to check out whether they are a customer or not. KaiNexus.com/webinars. Amazing people like Tracy and Elisabeth and other people presenting webinars. And we do those roughly every month. There's a library of recorded webinars. So I'd invite you to go check that out as well.
And I'll just add one more thing as a plug too, and that is your KaiNexus conference geared towards your customers and also KaiNexus employees. And I got a chance, and Elisabeth also got a chance to speak at that conference. And it was just a real pleasure getting a little taste of your culture and just the exuberance and the passion and the ease of, just people seemed happy there and people were excited and the customers were very engaged. And it was just a very enjoyable conference. And I feel like that is something like you get to go to this conference if you use the software, like you better sign up because it's a great conference.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I also I love the name. I love KaiNexicon. That just makes it like so hip. I just love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning it. KaiNexicon is coming up if you're listening to this in 2006, then it's coming up on April 15th through the 17th. It's here in Austin, and it's certainly geared for our customers. We do have a select number of spots for prospects as well, but if that is something of interest to you, we hear continuously, unsolicited, this is the best high value conference that people go to for actionable things that they can immediately use in their organization. So thank you, Tracy and Elisabeth, for that vote of confidence. And I lead a really wonderful group of people, and I'm humbled every day that they allow me to do that. So we have a great team.
Well,
Thanks
thank
so
you
much
so
for coming
much
on,
for
guys.
coming to the cafe,
Yeah,
both
thanks.
of you. I'm
Thanks for
sorry,
having
Elisabeth,
us.
I didn't mean to interrupt. What were you going to say?
Repeat what you just said, Tracy.
Okay.
That's what I was saying.
All right, both of you take care so much, and thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Have you gotten your copy of the second edition of the Problem Solvers Toolkit? No? What? You are missing out. It is a problem-solving guide in the form of a road trip with the characters from the Just-in-Time Cafe. It's not just the tools, it's how the tools can go wrong, the potholes, and what detours will help. And we're going to leave you a link. But in the meantime, you can access all the cool tools and guides that complement the book by going to our website and clicking on book. That's jitcafe.com/book.
And if you did not catch last month's podcast, we will leave you a link to Mind Over Matters, Engaging People to Drive Change with Tony Dotino. Tracy and I interviewed with Tony Dotino. He's an author, consultant, and one of the rare people who was actually in the room when modern quality thinking was taking shape. Tony worked alongside legends like W. Edwards Deming, Joseph Duran, and Philip Crosby, and he helped shape what became the Malcolm Baldrige Award and influenced early Six Sigma thinking, and he's still at it. We discussed what changed and what hasn't, and what's got him on television now.
Stay tuned for all the news by joining our community at the Just in Time Cafe.
Thanks for joining me and Tracy for yet another episode. You are our favorite thing about the Just in Time Cafe, and we look forward to being your lifelong learning partners.
Yes, we do. Join us next month and every month for your jolt of lean caffeine.